passenger trains collided on the East Coast Tuesday evening, killing one person and injuring some 90 others. 27 North Korean escapees have been arrested in China and are in danger of being sent back home. And former sex slaves for the Japanese military are in the United States to refute Japan's attempts to distort history. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Wednesday, July 23rd. I'm Luke Clary. Two passenger trains collided in the city of Taebaek in Gangwon Province on the East Coast Tuesday evening, killing one person and injuring some 90 others. Rescue efforts have continued all night.
A huge crane is brought to the derailed train on track. When the crashed train is pulled apart, the body crumbles and reveals the horrifying state of the collision. The Mugunghwa train was headed from Seoul's Cheongryangri to Gangneung in Gangwon Province. It collided headlong with the O train, which is a sightseeing train that travels central inland regions. A 77-year-old from Ansan, Gyeonggi Province, who was on the tourist train, was killed and some 90 others got injured.
갑자기 앞에 좀 기차가 찌그러지면서 먼지가 전체적으로 퍼지더라고요. 머리 세게 좀 받고 옆에 있는 친구도 크게 다치고.
Train operation has completely halted on this section of where the crash occurred. Efforts to restore the tracks continued all night. The Transport Ministry has set up a central headquarters immediately following the accident and has issued the highest level alert in its crisis response system.
빨리 끝내는 것도 중요하지만은 복구를 철저하게 해서 후속 열차들이 안전하게 여기를 운행할 수 있도록.
Korail has also apologized for yet another safety incident and promised best efforts in follow-up measures.
Yesterday's train accident occurred on a single-track railway. It's highly likely that either a malfunctioning signal or conductor error were behind the crash.
The Taebaek rail line consists mostly of single-track rails. As a result, trains running in opposite directions must allow one train to pass the other at a station with two or more tracks. Otherwise, there is bound to be a collision. Yesterday's train accident occurred because this rule was not observed. Regulations dictate that a sightseeing train should have waited at Mugunghwa station while a normal-speed Mugunghwa train drove into another track there before starting off into the single-track portion. But the tour train entered into the single-track section when the other train hadn't even made it into the passing loop segment, causing a head-on collision. Mugunghwa station should have given a stop sign to the tour train so that it wouldn't be on the single-track portion. Korail said either the signaling system was malfunctioning or the conductor failed to see the signal. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport sent 5 railway safety inspectors to the accident site to determine the cause of the crash.
The body of the fugitive Seoul ferry owner Yoo Byung-un was found June 12th, and while the police had loads of circumstantial evidence in front of their eyes to identify the body as Yoo's, for 40 days they continued searching for the deceased man. Blunders in the police investigation are coming under fire.
Park Yun-seok first found the body of the fugitive Seoul ferry owner Yoo Byung-un at his plum field. He informed the police a homeless man is dead on his field. The police had combed through the Dongjiche area 55 times, which is just 2 to 3 kilometers away from the plum field. But the police didn't suspect anything odd about the dead man's report.
다 주인이요. 그런 맹이가 하나 죽어 있다. 신고가 됐었어요. 일단 겨울 누더기 옷을 입었고요. 그리고 완전히 그 전형적인 그런 맹이 그런 스타일이었어요.
Clothes you were wearing at the time of death were a luxury foreign brand that costs a fortune. Among the articles found near his body was a bottle of shark liver oil produced by an affiliate of his religious sect, the Evangelical Baptist Church. There was also a bag with inscripted words of dream-like love, the title of a sermon book. All the belongings pointed to Yoo's identify. Handling of the scene was also problematic. The police knew the body had no external wounds, but they didn't bother to run tests on an empty liquor bottle found with the body to investigate a possible case of poisoning. The police didn't even gather a lump of hair containing genetic information and just left it on the scene.
우리가 완벽하지 못했다는 거 인정하고요. 그렇습니다.
The National Police Agency had dismissed police chiefs at the Suncheon police station over blunders in the handling of discovered body. Officers put in the case are all put under inspection. Prosecutors in Suncheon who oversaw the case of the discovered body will also be probed by the Supreme Public Prosecutor's Office.
Now that Yu's body has been found, the authorities are trying to ascertain the cause of death. The National Forensic Service is conducting various tests on the body to find out when and how he died.
As of now, the police very much doubt that Yu was murdered, since no signs of resistance or defensive wounds were found on his body. Some have claimed that the head was separated from the body, hinting at possible foul play, but the police stated that the corpse was found intact.
국가수 정말 갑자기 의뢰 형식이 나와야 되지만은 1차적으로 타살 혐의는 일단 없는 것으로 외견상 보입니다. 이를테면
The fugitive could have committed suicide as he was being pursued, but this is also considered unlikely given that he had been in hiding with the help of his followers.
자기 가서 자살할 일도 없고 성실해서 그냥 목숨 딱 끊는 게 자기 종교 시점에서 더 낫죠.
Some have raised the possibility of death from a snake bite or an accidental fall while fleeing to the mountains. But the advanced state of decomposition has made it difficult to determine the real cause of death.
또는 독극물 검사를 실시해서 최소한 자살이라든지 아니면 다른 원인이 있는지를 배제를 하고 난 후에 그 다음에 병사나 아니면 많이 주장하는 저체 혼사를 진단해야지.
The National Forensic Service is conducting a toxicology test and other detailed analyses on Yu's body to determine the cause of death.
A group of 27 North Korean escapees, including 4 families, has been arrested in China by Chinese security police. It's confirmed that they're in danger of being sent back home. A baby girl just about a year old is also among the group.
These are photographs taken early this month by North Koreans who fled the north and were staying in China. The group includes a couple in their 40s, a 20-something-year-old, female teens, and even an infant. Altogether, 27 of them, including 4 families and those who took the photographs, were arrested by Chinese security police last week.
청도에서 9명, 범용에서 18명, 중국 아이들까지 인구 6, 7명 다 잡혔다 이렇게 말했어요.
They are moving towards southern China on their way to South Korea via a third country. But 9 of them were caught in their secret lodge in Gangneung last Friday, and 18 others were arrested the next day. They are known to have been handed over to border guards in Tumen near the border with North Korea. The entire group appears to be in danger of repatriation. In March, a UN Commission of Inquiry on North Korean human rights urged China to ban repatriating North Korean defectors. But since 5 North Koreans are believed to have been sent back home from Gangneung, with the 27 likely to face a similar fate, their families and relatives who had first settled in South Korea are asking for urgent assistance.
Former sex slaves for the Japanese military are in the United States to refute Japan's attempts to distort history. They have submitted evidence to an American court and demand that Japan offer an official apology and legal compensation.
It has been a year since a statue of a girl was unveiled in Glendale, California as a reminder of the atrocities suffered by Korean women forced into service as sex slaves to Japanese troops during World War II. But rather than showing remorse over its wartime crimes, Japan has been filing lawsuits and trying persistently to have the statue removed. Japan's shameless campaign has driven 2 former Korean sex slavery victims nearing 90 years in age to fly across the Pacific to the U.S.
일본 사람이 오리발을 내밀고 왜 나쁜 짓을 하냐. 너무 딸을 강제적으로 끌고.
On behalf of all former comfort women in Korea, the 2 women have submitted materials proving the injustice of removing the statue to a U.S. court.
The memorial simply wants to recognize the atrocities that happened, to seek to recognize them here. We maintain an ongoing commitment that atrocities like these will never happen again.
They repeatedly demanded an official apology and legal compensation from the Japanese government.
우리가 죽을 때까지 이렇게 돌아다녀야 되니까 없어지기를 기다리십시오.
The 2 women will stay in the U.S. until early August and take part in various events to urge the Japanese government to change its attitude.
The royal seals of Joseon King Hyunjung and Queen Moonjung will likely be brought back to Korea early next year. Korea and the U.S. are currently negotiating the return of these Korean national treasures to their home country and have signed an MOU on the return of the priceless cultural assets.
The royal seals of Joseon King Hyunjung and Queen Moonjung went missing during the Korean War. They were kept by an antique collector from Los Angeles, but recently the U.S. investigators have confiscated the items from the collector and a museum. Their return to Korea has been postponed due to disputes over property rights. The Cultural Heritage Administration hopes that the two cultural assets, which are also national treasures, will be finally brought to Korea by January of 2015. If the dispute over property rights remains unresolved, the administration doesn't rule out the possibility of borrowing the royal seals from the U.S.
법적인 문제를 풀어야 됩니다. 그 푸는 기간이 몇 개월은 소요되리라고 보고요. 순조롭게 이루어지면은 내년 1월쯤 반환이 가능하다 이렇게 예상하고 있습니다.
An official from the U.S. Homeland Security Investigations said that the process of returning the assets to Korea might take a while, but that the issue of property rights will be solved in the long run. Meanwhile, Korea and the U.S. signed a memorandum of understanding today on the return of cultural assets that had been illegally taken out of Korea. The agreement sets an example for the return of some 150,000 Korean cultural assets that are currently owned by other countries.
We have a responsibility to make sure that those treasures are sent back to the rightful owner.
The signing of the MOU is expected to step up the negotiations between Korea and the United States on the return of Korean cultural treasures to their home country.
College students in Korea have embarked on an expedition to help the socially marginalized, such as seniors living alone, multicultural families, and North Korean defectors. This new type of donation is being broadcast live via KBS TV's app called Player K.
100 college students gathered together under the scorching sun. They will cross the nation on foot from its southernmost tip to the northernmost to meet with the public and promote aid for those in need. The scorching weather makes this endeavor a major challenge. Nonetheless, the students continue to smile at the thought of being able to help others.
희망도 나누고 주위 사람들에게 간절한 호소도 하기 때문에 그런 뜻깊은 자리에 참여하게 되었습니다. 혼자 하면 낙오 되겠는데 다 같이 족길 같이 하니까 완주했으면 좋겠습니다.
The students departed from Mara Island, which marks the southernmost point of Korea. They will walk for 17 days and 16 nights all the way to Imjingak, the furthest northern point in South Korea. The expedition will span 674 kilometers. During their expedition, the students will visit multicultural families to help them repair their homes and provide help to elderly people living alone.
한 분 한 분의 가장 중요한 인간의 존엄성이 실현될 거고 그것이 모여서 이루는 아름다운 드라마가 만들어질 것이라고.
The expedition is part of a donation campaign carried out by KBS and the Korean Red Cross. It's being covered live by the KBS app Player K. This expedition is a new type of donation featuring new media. Anyone residing in Korea can donate to the campaign by phone.
Koreans enjoy food with some kick in it, but some people like to go to the extreme. Here are some spicy dishes that are so hot that they make the summer heat wave feel like a cool breeze. At this market in downtown Seoul, there's a store that offers a menu nobody can resist. Does this look like an ordinary pork hock diner? Customers' reactions say otherwise. Just one bite drenches you in sweat. The restaurant's signature dish is fiery pork hocks. Even their color seems to be ablaze. But its spiciness is also addictive. The secret to its mouth-numbing spiciness is the 4 different types of chili peppers heaped into the sauce. Garlic, ginger, and sliced chili pepper are added to make the sauce even hotter. After a bit of fermentation, the killer sauce is ready to claim its next victim. But just one coat of the sauce won't do.
1단계 저기 바다에서 다라이다 굽는 거. 2단계, 3단계, 4단계, 5단계, 5번.
The fiery sauce is rubbed onto the hocks 5 times to allow the spiciness to soak into the meat. Koreans are drawn to this sweat-inducing dish, especially on a sizzling hot day like today.
너무 맵고 맛있으니까 땀이 나면서 제 열을 발산하는 것 같고요.
This restaurant is located in Gyeonggi Province. This eatery is filled with diners looking for jampong, the spicy noodle soup. Don't let its ordinary appearance fool you.
5단계로 해주세요. 5단계 주세요, 5단계.
An order of stage 5 noodles brings a pot full of spicy seafood jampong. Diners eagerly try out the red broth.
사우나 온 것 같아요.
Just a couple of spoonfuls later, the customers are sweating all over.
1번부터 5번까지 단계가 있어요. 1번은 안 매운 거 그냥 보통 일반 짬뽕 맛이고요. 2번은 굉장히 얼큰해요. 3번부터 단계가 굉장히 이제 점점 강도가 올라가는데요. 5번은 굉장히 매워요.
The Wall of Fame features only about a dozen people who have finished a stage 5 jampong. Its fieriness is achieved by first stir-frying hot pepper powder and assorted vegetables. Then stock and seafood are added and brought to a boil. So far, the soup doesn't look that menacing, but here comes the kicker. It's Vietnamese chili pepper powder. Each spoonful of this numbing powder is equal to 1 stage of spiciness. So the cook adds 5 spoons for a stage 5 order. Some foolhardy diners dare to try the stage 5 noodles. Sweat immediately beads up on their foreheads.
땀을 한번 흘리면요, 사우나 갈 필요가 없고, 사우나 하면서 이런 맛있는 음식도 먹는다는 그 일석이조의 그런 느낌이거든요.
This restaurant is a favorite after-work haunt for nearby office workers. The most popular menu here is the fiery braised ribs. Your mouth waters as soon as a pan of meaty ribs appears at your table. The best way to enjoy it is to hold the rib by the bone and tear at it. But the heat soon kicks in. But help is at hand. Cheese fondue comes to rescue the burning tongues. Melted cheese is a perfect solution to the fiery braised ribs. The meat tastes great dipped in cheese and wrapped in lettuce. The cheese makes the heat a little more bearable. The secret to this rib dish is to cook the ribs in a pressure cooker to make the meat tender and juicy.
이게 저희가 만든 갈비찜 특제 소스고요. 여기에는 각종 이제 뭐 야채라든가 고춧가루가 들어갑니다.
2 kinds of chili pepper powder and copious amounts of onions and garlic go into the secret sauce. The mixture is simmered with ribs once more so that the heat can penetrate deeper into the meat. But the dish is not complete until another scoop of chili pepper powder is added before being served. The spiciness of the fiery ribs blows away the summer heat and stress.
땀이 좀 나니까 기분은 좀 개운하고요. 더 맛있게 먹어야겠어요.
These fiery dishes are sure to shock you out of your summer slump. So how about fighting heat with heat this summer? Now we'll take a look at the markets, followed by the world's weather. And that's it for this edition of News Today. We'll see you again at the same time tomorrow. Have a great day.